We are live and we are back with another episode of the Cookie Button Show where I have had the pleasure of welcoming Logan from openlinks.io, and we are going to talk about a bunch of things. We're going to talk about what IPFS is, what's Web3, and what is Galaxy X, and what is Galaxy X trying to do with OpenIO.links. So, Logan, could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me. So my name is Logan Lentz. I'm the lead maintainer of a few different projects here in the the open source ecosystem. And so specifically, Open Links being the one we'll talk about today, and then I'm also a part of the company Galaxy X. And yeah, I can tell you what we're doing at Galaxy X, some cool projects that we get to work on, etc. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can hear you. I think you're mute. Oh, yeah, mute.
All right. So, yeah, Logan, good to have you here. So, let's talk about your company, which is Galaxy S, and then we can move forward with openlinks.io.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, Galaxy X specifically, we are my partner, business partner, and I, Alex. We are pushing really the way people control and use data on IPFS. And so what that means is IPFS, for those of you who don't know, it's really kind of a new way to run the internet. And so whenever you are working with a new protocol to run the internet on, it turns out that there's a lot of things that you need working to have a fulfilling experience as a user. And so basically, at Galaxy X, we build a whole bunch of tools to make working on the open internet, aka IPFS, the interplanetary file system, that's what IPFS stands for. Um, we make tools, build tools to make that easier. And so specifically what that is we have this tool. It's called IPFS Stat Viewer, and it's built on the Chrome store. And so if there's a bunch of tools that will visualize what is stored on your hard drive. And so if you've ever used Windy or Stat on a Windows computer, that's a famous one. But basically, you can use our Google you can use our Google Chrome plugin to basically you click on it and it will give you a visualization of what is stored on your IPFS node. And so it won't show you what's on your hard drive, it'll show you what's on your IPFS node. Um, and so just like that's a super simple tool that I made like last year. And luckily we have a little bit of open source help on that, but I'm always like doing little pieces and working on that. And then we have a bunch of other tooling that we're working on that I recently started working on. So that's really like Galaxy X. Galaxy X is, and then within like Galaxy X, we make Open Links too, which Open Links is a really cool project that I can introduce to if that's a good time. I don't know.
Absolutely. So this podcast is about open links because you introduced me to open links to Twitter because I saw that you have written that you're the lead maintainer of the project. So please take us through and walk us through the entire integrity of what OpenLink does and how it came about, the history, and why you thought that you should start open links.
Right, right. So, as everybody's probably seen, or a lot of people probably have seen this cool app like Linktree, but essentially Linktree is just you can set a bunch of links and have it tied to you. And so if you have your Instagram, you can put this Linktree link, and then somebody can go to that and see a whole bunch of links that you can lead users to things that you're interested in, like project links, look at my store, look at my social links, all this, etc. So that's all on Linktree. And so basically, my business partner and I, Alex, were just like, last year we were working, just like doing something, working on our usual, data Galaxy X stuff. And we saw that Linktree wasn't like, I don't know, there's a whole bunch of projects that right now they like really need to be like strung up in IPFS. IPFS is this cool new protocol. So what can we build that really harnesses the great things about IPFS and like give you a quick intro about like some of the great things about IPFS because like that will like lead us into like why OpenLinks is cool. So the IPFS, the Interplanetary File System, is this whole project that was basically built out of if we wanted to go to Mars, how do we get our internet there? Because if you're on Mars, you're not going to be able to talk to, you're not going to, be able to send a request to Earth and then have to wait, the 3 minutes of, light takes 3 minutes to travel all the way to Mars, and then it's going to take another 3 minutes. It's like that's going to take a long time for your internet to happen. And so, I think it's 3 minutes. I don't know if that's correct, but so regardless, we needed to find a way to bundle the internet to take it with us, to take pieces of the internet with us. And so, boom, that's what IPFS is. And it turns out whenever you do that, whenever you like bundle it up to take it to Mars, there's a lot of great things that happen. So like for one of them being a lot of most of the internet that you use today, all the internet on HTTP and HTTPS is through what is called the client server model. So like me, the client, I'm talking to a server. So the cool thing about IPFS is the way that you send and retrieve data is through not through an address. That's how HTTP is through an addressing feature. So you're always talking to something, or I guess somewhere. You're always talking to somewhere. Whereas with IPFS, we have this awesome thing called content addressing, and so you're not talking to a place. You're talking to you want a piece of content. That's how you distinguish. You're not distinguishing between an address. You're distinguishing between like an actual content identifier. So what that is kind of like a hash, if you've ever seen a hash before. So you can hash data to make sure that your data is like exactly as you want it. So that's the cool thing about IPFS is the content that you're just working with is therefore like you can see that the content is exactly what you want. And so that it changes a lot of things. So like our normal internet, you have to trust who you're talking to, and that tends to be kind of an issue in a lot of circumstances. And so content addressing on IPFS is really like a new, big, awesome, cool harnessing power. And then IPFS also goes way deeper, and also it's like they've commoditized data storage, and so they've made data storage very, very inexpensive with Filecoin and integrations within there. And so essentially, you have an internet that is working a whole lot better, faster, cheaper, and more efficient. And like as a user of the internet every day, I really want a protected and safe internet. I want my internet to be as like I want it to be. And so taking pride in working hard to make sure that the infrastructure in which I'm performing networking tasks is done on, like I think that it's a good task to do that. And we've seen in the past, like a lot of the things that we love on the internet just somehow just disappear out of nowhere. And so that's pretty sad. And so boom, like there's, I guess, do you have any questions about IPFS, I guess, on that really, really rough, rocky explanation?
Absolutely, because a lot of people would like podcasts that I make about different open source technologies, and the primary reason why I basically started this Cookie Button show is to motivate students to learn more about different tech and contribute eventually, because that is the beauty of open source. So it also brings me to asking you this question: what exactly is this IPFS, and what are the different cool things you can actually build with it? Just like the way you build openlinks.io on this, so what can students build with this? And if you just share the use cases with us, I think that gives a proper understanding of what IPFS is and how to use it.
Awesome. So yeah, so like I said a little bit previously, IPFS is a protocol for networking. It's a networking protocol. So in terms of like what you can build on it, you can build whatever you could build originally on the networking protocols that we have already, HTTP, HTTPS. And so basically the sky's the limit in what you can build. The problem is the with HTTP and HTTPS, we have a lot of tooling built around building apps on it. And so the exciting thing about IPFS is it's a new way that we can do, it's a new way of doing networking, and it's a lot better, safer, faster, and cheaper. And so as the tooling builds up, it'll be easier to build on it. And so there's there's a lot of nuances to building on a new networking stack, and so that's just one of like the oddities of working on open internet architecture. And so so like I said, like the reason why you want to do it is for protected internet, safer, better, faster, cheaper. It's really like before, like a few years ago when we first heard about IPFS, it was like, first being introduced. Um, there there was a lot of questions and talk around like, okay, like, use cases, like, is there reasons to switch things over? But like now, after the years, we've really like realized like, okay, yeah, like, the reasons why this is like a big deal is, say like there's a country, and the country doesn't want the internet turned on. So the reason why you use IPFS is because anybody like there's a lot of like awesome specific scenarios. Like in Spain, it was the Catalan government wanted to secede away from Spain, and so they wanted to like jump away and become their own government. And so Spain, as a nation, they decided to turn off the internet for Catalonia, and so because of that, uh, because of that, people switched over to IPFS, and everybody could still communicate using IPFS. And so, super awesome use case scenario of why you would want to use like a protocol such as IPFS. So, we have laid out like the reason why you would want to use it. Just a better networking stack. It's fault tolerant. Governments can't, topple it. Um, and then there's also like the whole trustability, the verifiability. You can trust like the data you're talking to. So there's the reasons why you use it. And then what you can build on it is, like I said, the sky's the limit. But the limiting factor is, of course, the tooling that we have. So um, yeah. So that really, like, the reason why kind of leads you into like why we built OpenLinks is because of how OpenLinks is a rather simple application. Like Linktree, it's like, okay, this is, you build an HTML page and then you list some links, and that's not too difficult. And then you put the page on IPFS, which is not too difficult because the page is very small. You're dealing with a very like, the big problem with IPFS is because it's so new, doing hard, difficult tasks like working with big fat videos and big files. Just in general, it can be difficult. Whereas something like an HTML page for OpenLinks is very, very tiny. And so, perfect use case scenario, boom. Um, yeah, and then like we've moved on to a lot of like adding photos to it, adding cooler themes, adding a user interface that makes a lot more sense, etc.
Awesome. So, it also kind of propels me to ask you questions regarding some other, tooling platforms and some other tooling companies as well. Because, especially since you mentioned Linktree, and in one of your social media posts, I came across that you are presenting Web3 Linktree in some webinar or some sort of a meetup. So, I do understand it's a new technology into an already established identification, social identification platform, putting in links in just one link and then sending it to everybody else. But I wanted to ask you, have you heard of Eddie Hub's link free project?
Negative. No, no. Uh, is that any Eddie Jawood's project or something on maybe
Yes,
Twitter?
yes, 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 yes.
That's
Have you
awesome.
heard
Yeah,
of
I
have you
haven't.
heard of that?
I don't think I have. No, I don't think I have. But love it. I mean, love it, love it. Like if I can get him to move his over to IPFS, I mean, all the better. Like, definitely. If he wants, yeah. I haven't looked at it though. Yeah. Do you have any? Yeah. What should I know about it? Do you know anything?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, they are pretty much running an open source project where they are putting in all links and everything, like exactly what Linktree does, right? Their inspiration has come from Linktree itself. Basically, Eddie started this Linktree project where you can put in links, you can, come and collaborate on his repositories and contribute and all of these. And there are a lot of students who are exactly contributing, and it's open source. So, have you
Just
thought
like
about that? Like, have
oh,
you thought of
definitely,
onboarding?
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, we're super lucky with Open Links to have some of the like some. We have a few, not very many, but you're one of them. You've even like reached out. I saw that you were like, "Hey, look at this. We have an issue saying we want to add NFT profile photos to Open Links. Definitely like a no-brainer." And so you even mentioned you would love to help out with that. And so definitely like there's nothing better to have people coming into your project and to help out just with anything. Even giving it any exposure is like the coolest thing ever. To be honest, like just making a comment is like in my mind, it's like, okay, I love that. But you know, everybody has their different definition of like what a contribution is. Like I'm not the judge, but yeah, love it. Like lovely, like to see other Linktree apps and stuff. It's really yeah, really cool to work on such a like something so simple, but really can go a long way.
If given an hypothetical situation, how would you actually work alongside Eddie Hub's link free project along with open links? What would you do?
That's a good question. You know, yeah, there's like the awesome thing about like the open source community is we get to learn from the amazing people around us. And so, in terms of like recommendations, like how would I work with Eddie Hub? To be honest, like, we're just better together. I feel like, like open source projects just are beneficial to each other. And so, if the code somehow maybe is similar, which I would assume maybe it could be, there's like could be cross contamination there. But I don't know. That's the thing is like each project, it's different. Like I know Eddie Hub. I'm sure he's got a very inviting experience into like come. These are the things that we should look for. These are like this is the project and this is how you can contribute. Like that's the awesome thing about like what he would probably do. Whereas someone like me in Open Links, it's like there's two people working on it like part time, and so it's like to be able to have his tenacity and his he's I'm sure is just like probably on it all the time, and so to have that is a lot something you're gonna have to learn, and so hopefully we learn that too as well as he does because I'm sure his how many people does he have probably contributing is probably a few. um, but but yeah, I don't know. What do you think too? Like, what's on your mind about how they can kind of like, what were you thinking?
I was thinking that since you have this particular X factor about openlinks.io, which is because it is based upon IPFS system. So I was thinking if there is a way or there is a loophole where you can actually integrate the IPFS and probably ask him to shift his project over IPFS. So
Oh man.
how would that be? Would that be a merger of open links, or would that be actually asking him to migrate the technology on which he has built in to IPFS? What would it be?
So it's really it's really up in the air. It's really up in the air. It's really like I'm of the mentality of like of be better together. So like I love having more people at the table, and so how that happens, I am I'm very unsure, but definitely if he wants advice on how to integrate his application into IPFS, I would be more than happy to like figure that out with him. You know, definitely something to think about, uh, but you know, yeah, that's another thing too is yeah, that's something I haven't thought about. If you have a system that's already built, how hard is it to integrate it with IPFS? That's a really good question. That's a really good because I built OpenLinks just like off the rip. So, Technically, I wouldn't assume it's actually that different. I really wouldn't, because I wouldn't assume it's probably not, because technically, like, the only thing that I'm doing with open links is I'm saving all of the open links pages on IPFS using this cool service called Web3.storage. And so technically, I'm pretty sure he could just send his pages there too. so 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 yeah, interesting concept, really. I mean, honestly, very interesting concept. Um, I'll throw it out there, maybe. Maybe having it, yeah, there's this cool feature that IPFS has. And so if you try to go to an address or something, like a normal address, HTTP address, so I try to go to, like, so and so.com. If the .com doesn't work, then you can save a page with IPFS. And so um, there's a lot of integration, I'm sure, that could be done there.
All right. So, what basically made you work with um, a link in bio sort of a tool rather than work on some other project? Why did you go with identification, and why did you build a
Great.
platform around links?
Definitely, great question. So we were on Twitter, and somebody, my business partner Alex, saw it. We were on Twitter, and he saw somebody was like, "Hey, is there a link in bio built on IPFS?" And everybody, this was like 7 or 8 months ago. It was a while ago, and everybody was like, "No, I don't know, I don't think so." And so we were like, so like I said before, a lot of things are kind of hard to do on IPFS because of like constraints and stuff, network constraints. Just being able to send heavy payloads back and forth is difficult, and so you have a tiny little HTML page here with maybe an image or two, etc. So really a prime candidate, a perfect candidate for IPFS. It's perfect, because also the whole thing about a Linktree page is you want to share it to somebody. You want somebody else to see it, and so the awesome thing about IPFS is, like, it's really hyper shareable. Like, that's the whole point. IPFS is a peer-to-peer system, and so it's meant to be peer-to-peer. And so that's like boom, perfect use case scenario. Also, link trees and like people's pages and stuff. If people don't like some of the links that they have inside the link tree, then you can get, like, your page won't be available. Like, oh, this guy doesn't get to share whatever they want to share because of X reason. And so I'm all about like I'm all about freedom of speech. Oftentimes the people who are suppressed, it's not for like, nefarious reasons. It's for pretty sad reasons, like they just, oppression and stuff. And so um, having hyper shareable links and stuff is just like boom, that's like number one goal. And so yeah, it was just a very simple project. It didn't yeah, it's simpler. It's simpler. There's a lot of things, like, I'm working on a few different projects, luckily in IPFS, and so open links is like it's a great idea. It's a pretty simple, like, awesome execution, and there's so many things we can add to it, and so it's got a long way to go, but it's not like it's like a video streaming platform where you have to have, like, a lot of infrastructure set up and a lot of, caching and load balance, etc. So that's the thing too, is there's, like, a lot of distinct, like, Linktree has a lot of DNS propagation and stuff that they have to pay attention to. Like, when you create a Linktree page, you have your own address that's tied to you, and so that incurs a cost. Whereas IPFS pages, we do everything on just an IPFS page, and so we have like some infrastructure that we have to keep going with open links, because we have added this awesome update to where you can actually go to the same link now. So we do have infrastructure running for that, but for the most part, it is decentralized. I think mute. Sorry. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Sorry.
Sorry, I sometimes just mute myself.
No, it's all good.
So, what other things are you planning to build on the IPFS system other than open links?
Right, right. That's a great question. So yeah, Galaxy X's mission is we're here to make it easier for users and developers to secure their data. And so um, there's a lot of like cool things that we get to work on. Luckily, we don't. My business partner and I, we're not like directly affiliated with IPFS. We don't work for them. Luckily, we've been given a few grants to work on a few different cool projects in the space, and so basically, like Alex and I, my business partner and I, are free to reign like all the cool projects and see like what's happening within the whole large ecosystem of Protocol Labs. And so Protocol Labs is in charge of IPFS. They're in charge of Filecoin. They're in charge of like this big FVM, the Filecoin virtual machine. So they're in charge of like this big, huge ecosystem of really cool, amazing teams. And so Alex and I, my business partner and I, get to go around and like for the past year, we've been with the ecosystem really like close knit to figure out like where the biggest paying points are. And I don't have too much to talk about it right now, but certainly any questions you have, I'd love to answer. But basically, like one of the big things we're talking, or one of the big things that we're working on, um, like big time professionally, is metrics and safe anonymous analytics on IPFS. And so it turns out on a peer-to-peer network like IPFS, it's really hard to know what happens on that network. And so basically, there's not, if you're building an app on IPFS, there's no way to know how many people have looked at your Linktree page. That's one of some of our users were like, how many people clicked on my page? How many people have seen it? And we were like, oh, we don't know. And so we could certainly apply Web2 analytics features to tell us that, but we don't want to do that. What's a way that we can do that on IPFS safely without exposing the user to anything? The biggest foundation we're standing on is privacy, and so making sure that all IP addresses are scrubbed and lost, so that way everybody's identity is safe. Like that's one of the biggest things that we've kind of lost with Web 2. Every service that you talk to knows pretty much everything there is to know about you, and so yeah. So like that's like Lado is the project that is called. It's like brand spanking new. It's brand new, but I have a GitHub and everything that I can share. But Lado is yeah, safe metrics and analytics on IPFS. But yeah.
All right. So, like, can you name that some of the usual applications that we use in our daily lives? How many of those applications can actually be moved to the IPFS file system?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a lovely question. Okay, so yeah, like now we've seen this big onrush. Now that we have IPFS and we have all these cool like storage platforms and stuff, so now we're starting to see like awesome cool usage. And so you ask like, what's some of the cool apps? What are the apps that we use every day? So like one of them being like specific. What we're doing this right now, a video chat. So yeah, if you're doing video chat on the internet, there's a lot of things that we can use. There's Zoom, there's Evmux, of course, 10 out of 10. There's really a lot. There's a lot. Skype was one of them. I mean, Skype just completely disappeared. Where did Skype go? Who knows? And so that specific video conferencing is a big one that in IPFS we've got one front runner. It seems like I think it's Huddle or sorry, yeah, Huddle 01. 10 out of 10. Super super cool group. They do video chat. Another one would be we've got music on IPFS, and so that one would be that company is called Audis or Audius. Audius, Audius. Audius is another cool. It's music on IPFS. What else? There's a lot. There's a lot. There's messaging. So messaging. So like this is a big one. Okay. So if I'm if I like if I message someone on Facebook Messenger, okay, basically if I'm like say if I message if we're sitting you and I are sitting on an airplane and I message you, basically my Facebook Messenger is going to send a message to the nearest DNS location. So it's going to talk to a server somewhere, and then it's going to do a bunch of hopping, and then it's going to hop to you, to your phone. Okay. So like that is just like a technologically like there's a lot of like issues with that. All the hopping around, it doesn't need to do that. I sent a message to you, and you're on the same plane as me. And so why do I need to go all the way over there? And so Birdie is a messaging app that it uses conventional like communication, so you can have it connected to Wi-Fi, and it'll be using IPFS over Wi-Fi, but also it works over Bluetooth Bluetooth LE, so Bluetooth low energy. So like it's network agnostic. That's the big thing, is like you don't have to be connected to a specific network for it to work. It could work on Bluetooth. It can work on Wi-Fi, 3G, etc. So like that's the big boom. That's like, okay, that's great. And so then whenever you're at whenever if you've ever been to like a really busy like football game or soccer game or wherever big events where there's a lot of people around you, your messaging services like your phone calls, all of those, the bandwidth to your phone is diminished greatly, and so to have it work off of Bluetooth is great because you're not limited by like the cell tower that a million people are connected to at once. So yeah, like awesome.
All right. Yeah, so I also wanted to ask, I think I saw this mentioned on your OpenLinks profile. You have this logo where it is written IPFS and then, Philcoin. So could you please like tell us the connection between, IPFS and Philcoin?
Yeah, awesome. So um, IPFS, the Interplanetary File System, they there's a whole underlying technology that runs that whole protocol. And so there's a lot of like really cool things, like content addressing is a big one, that just run naturally on IPFS. And so Filecoin is it's a network built around storage commoditization. So essentially, like you can run, if you have a big storage server, you can run Filecoin on it, and somebody can store data on your fancy server, and they'll pay you directly to store the data on it. So great. So now I can store my data for very, very cheap prices. And the way I do that, if I want to use Filecoin to store my data, then I need to have it on IPFS. And so first was IPFS in the protocol. Like they figured out they figured out how to work data like that. And then Filecoin came after to revolutionize the storage market. And of course, they're building on top of that to take care of also retrievability too. And so you have storage, retrievability. They're adding programmability too, and so it'll be all automated. Yeah, really like a fantastic set of years to see all this stuff happen.
Awesome to hear that. The main part and the main reason that I actually started the Cookie Button show was to basically focus my content around people who are ready to take action. Like, I wouldn't want somebody to sit and listen to us and then do nothing the next moment. Like, if somebody is listening to you talking about, Philcoin or IPFS entire system or even your open source project, my main goal is to get something out of this conversation that would motivate the other person to get started. Maybe when I've mentioned on my ticker that please go visit Galaxy IO and OpenLinks IO, right? The reason being, if they can see what's the website upon, what the project is working upon, they can go and contribute. So I would like to ask you, how can students or even working professionals or just even anybody who has a basic understanding of what web3 is, how do they get started with IPFS or they get started with open links for that
Right.
matter?
Right. Yeah, it's super important to bring as many people um, as we can over into the dark or light side, whoever knows. So um, how like basically like now that all of these things are coming online and we have all of this tooling, there's no better time to get into this ecosystem. And really it's I don't think it's any different of an ecosystem than what we conventionally have in like what is called Web 2 or Web 3. Like really the 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 thing that I like to focus on and the people that I like to like hang around is with Web 2, there were very specific things. Like there's a lot of characteristics of the client server model that mean that as a user, I get pushed down a path that I don't really have any options to. So if you've ever created a new account on some application, don't you like you always usually will go to your email to like verify it, right? So yeah, so that's something that we figured out authentication quite a while ago. And so why am I going to my email and doing this switcheroo to have an account on a website when we figured out authentication in the like a long time ago? And so basically like with the reason why like I spend time here is because it's in my mind it's just like physics. Like the if you would rather go 5 miles instead of going 15 miles, you're just going to want to go 5 miles. And so the awesome thing about IPFS is it is simpler in the route that you're going. The basically like you don't have to we've changed things now to where you don't have to go to your email now to do an authentication. Now it works off of it knows yeah, there's plugins that we can use like on iPhone that basically it will use the security chip on your Apple device to do the authentication. And so you don't have to go to your email. And so things like that are just those are big steps that you don't get in Web 2 because you have to trust the person you're talking to. And so those inherent characteristics mean that you're going to be dealing with a different user experience. So the cool thing about IPFS is the user experience is built for the user. And so the people who are interested in keeping our internet going aren't the users. Like they're the people who are like banking on it, the people who are profiting, making money. And so like the user should be the one who's in control of their data. And so the way you do that is by using IPFS. So yeah, like that explains like why you should, and then I can, like the ways you can add to it, the ways like you can jump into the party, because boy, is it a party, and it's a good one. There's like right now, yes, on Pi Day, so yesterday, technically, it was the launch of FEM, the Filecoin Virtual Machine, which is basically like this huge revolution in how we can create programmability with data on Filecoin. And so essentially, like, it's a big revolution for where people store their data on Ethereum and where they store their data on Filecoin too. And so if we can push anybody anywhere, it's to push people definitely to FVM, the Filecoin Virtual Machine. Really like super exciting to see that launch. But yeah, also like that's a very forward-thinking part of the internet. If you want to build an app on IPFS and you want to build an app with Filecoin, use an awesome service like Web3.storage or Picnic or I'm sorry, not Picnic. I'm sorry, Web3.storage or Pinata, or even you can go with Picnic too. They're in the space. Also, Lighthouse.storage is another team that's really like pushing the boundaries of how to store data on IPFS and Filecoin. And so with all of these companies, you really get these are brand new, like starting out. Basically developer companies tied to help developers work on IPFS. And so with all of these companies, you get amazing teams that you can literally get on the phone with and say like, hey, this is my problem, and they'll hit you up and like help you. So really that's like a big point to be in the space. And another one I guess I'll really like try to go over quickly is like, this is the future. Like if people can save their data in a better place that's less expensive to run, then that's like it's just going to be a mass moving effect over to that side. Data, as you know, data storage is getting pretty expensive, and so just to have that is one thing, but to also have like the better programmability, the better protections, and all that stuff, it's really going to be a big deal in the coming days to have your systems running on it. And so to have experience in the early days is going to be just crucial.
All right. In your when you were explaining who should contribute to IPFS and why people should start migrating to IPFS, you mentioned about the Apple, iPhone integration system. How instead of, depending on an email to verify or to authenticate your access into a certain application, you can do that very seamlessly with an Apple device. But according to recent news, have you heard about Apple security issues, a lot of data being lost, theft happening, and all of these things?
Definitely. I haven't not specifically. I know of like just the underlying I know of a lot of. I know it's not. I know it's a common occurrence, and so from what I understand, like out of all of the providers for cloud storage, um, yeah, yeah, not surprising. I would assume that Apple is probably one of the better ones compared to the other, Google, et cetera, et cetera. But from what I understand, like they're. It's not like they're bad, but I don't know if they're good.
I mean, there was this entire debate about Android versus iOS,
Oh yeah.
and people have always said that iOS has such a boundary filled with security, safety, and user data protection and everything. While Android, being open source, has never had such claims about data theft or just any such tinkering with data protection. So I was really
Yeah.
wondering.
Yeah, Android, I know Android phones, like in terms of vulnerabilities, are like a lot more prone to outside vulnerabilities just because of the nature of like having all these manufacturers making different devices. For security I'm not an expert or anything, but I would believe that um, that Apple devices probably were much more locked down. They were probably like maybe yeah, I'm not an expert on who's hacked more or anything, but I just know like if I'm trying to I've rooted an Android phone and I've jailbroken in an Apple phone like years ago, probably 10 years ago it seems like. Um, it's it's a lot easier to get about the file system in an Android phone. It's a lot easier to change things in an Android phone than it is to change things in an Apple phone, if that makes sense. And so yeah, like I'm not an expert. Like the thing is you don't want to rely on either one of them. That's the whole point. I feel like is like both of them. It's like I wouldn't trust either one of them, um, but at the end of the day, yeah, at the end of the day, um, yeah, that's the thing. Is if you have all your data sitting on a phone, then like that ain't a good you need to back that up somewhere. But in terms of like safety and security, yeah, as long as you're using two-factor authentication, you're not using cell phone, you're not using like a cell phone number for your 2FA. Um, if you have a modern phone, even a modern Android, and it gets hacked, that's a bad situation. That's not good. I feel like that's pretty sad. I feel bad for you. Um, but it probably happens. Yeah, I don't know. Have that ever happened to you?
None, none that
Yeah.
I can actually remember. So
Good.
no.
Me either. Good. Good. I would be like, oh, um, but
So yeah. So how did you make your entry into the Web3 space? Honestly, like I'm assuming that that's where you are basically focusing your career on and your professional life on as well.
yeah. So I was in college. forget a year. I was in college a few years ago, and I heard about IPFS while I was studying, and I was just like, "Oh wow, this is amazing!" And at the time, it was very early. They had like one meetup that was open to the public. I think it was like IPFS Camp Barcelona, and I kind of wanted to go to it. There was like potential. Like I was trying to maybe make some plans, but like it never did happen. Um, Literally with the same business partner I have, so like I've been here for many years as a lurker. It's just kind of like silently lurking in the background, just kind of like looking at a lot of the projects. I'm a huge fan of Juan Bennett and the whole team, everybody at Protocol Labs. Like they're such an inspiration. Just amazing people. I if you have any time, go look at some of the cool things that like Juan Bennett does. I see like every week I will see cool new things about what the team at PL Protocol Labs is doing. If you've ever watched on YouTube, there's a Veritasium, so a great channel that just shows you like cool stuff on like cool science stuff. So Juan Bennett is like a big he's like one of the sponsors of Veritasium. I saw that the other day. I was just like, oh my gosh! I was like yes. And so yeah, I'm just like a huge fan of everybody. And so I graduated school and I was working in, the career field in like Web 2. I did a year at Amazon working with a few different teams. Um, and after my year there, I was very excited to jump on my own thing. And I went directly straight to IPFS. And luckily they were like very, if you hit anybody of them up on GitHub, they will give you like 100% of the time of day. Like they were doing some events by where I lived, and so I put in to do a talk about like this my little my IPFS stat viewer, so this Chrome extension that I had, and so that was also when OpenLinks was in its infancy, so it like had just started, and so like they let me come and talk when like my projects were barely done, and they let me talk in front of like tons of people here at Filecoin Austin, this cool event, and so that was last year. And so basically, like you know, I've only been here a year. Literally, like I took a photo. I took my first photo ever with Juan Bennett like yesterday. It was like a year. It came up on like my scroll. It was like, hey, look at this photo. I was like, oh, cool. But so yeah, like I've only been here a year, and I mean I've been a lurker for forever. So I was always like throughout college. I was even reading the right white paper of IPFS, and so um, I've always been like a lurker. But yeah, like I was always like, I don't know if you're ever out of the ecosystem. You're just like, it's like, are you participating or are you not? And it's like, I definitely wasn't participating until last year. And ever since this one year, they've given me so much help. There's an awesome grant program. And so they've given me personally 3 different grants on like some really cool, like my Stat Viewer project, and even OpenLinks got a grant too. And so if you need time to take to study and to work and to build a project on this, and it's a cool, awesome project, then they'll literally fund it. And so that's like, yeah, how does it get better than that? And so yeah, like I'm just like definitely blessed to be able to like work here with them. Like I said, they're like really an amazing group of people. And they're pushing, the cool thing is like they're pushing a technology that is just irresistibly amazing. To be able to send and retrieve data without anybody, an intermediary, it's like, okay, that's like that's the whole golden grail, you know? So yeah, just like, yeah. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, do you have any, resources by the help of which people can get started with IPFS, like the really good way?
Of course, of course. And so it's just like, how do I narrow down my large list? So if I could direct anybody to anything, it would definitely just be ipfs.io. That'll take you to their main page. Definitely download and install IPFS on your computer or your your desktop. it'll show you, it'll get you a part of the network. Boom, you'll be a part of the peer-to-peer network. Your computer will be a full, yeah. I should have maybe asked, are you familiar at all with like torrenting software? Or like, do you know what
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah. So same. So so IPFS is a lot like torrenting software in the way that like you can pull files directly from one another, except it's just doing it naturally. So it's just amazing. You don't have to like find the weird, magnet link or anything. You can just, pull it, it's great. And so yeah, that's like I should have maybe when you were asking like what's the reason why to use IPFS, it's like, well, why why torrent? Because it's great. And so yeah, like boom. There's another example of why it's great. I forget what we were talking about.
We were talking about some educational resources to help get started with IPFS.
Right. Yeah. So definitely IPFS.io. Download an IPFS node. Um, I found my train of thought. Thank you. Filecoin.io too. Um, but Filecoin.io is like a very like infrastructure. Hey, this is like we're hosting data and stuff. But there's a lot of awesome, great resources there if you want to like program on Filecoin too. Um, FVM .filecoin.io, and so here I could send you these links if it's easier too. Sorry. Um,
You can send them in the comments if you like. Do you have any comments?
yeah, I'll add some comments. Perfect.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. How do I comment here?
That's a big of a deal. How do you write a comment in EV Marks? Do you see any portal?
I see like I see this comments thing right here, and then I see a previous comment, a sample one.
Yeah. And are you able to write a comment over there?
Nope.
Okay, you
Negative.
can share the materials with me on Twitter. I can
Okay.
showcase them as comments.
Cool. No problem. Awesome. Yeah.
So, meanwhile, you put down the comments. I would just like to ask you any like, okay, give me a 1 minute elevator pitch as to why somebody should get started with IPFS and openlinks.io.
Okay, so if I go over a minute, because I probably will, let me know. So IPFS, like I said, peer-to-peer open source protocol, you know, basically posed to replace the internet. Um, we have a duty to protect our internet, just as it's a good idea. Um, so by pushing IPFS and Open Internet Protocol, we're essentially ensuring a safer future for our data, humanity's data, and so yeah, like that's the problem. We need to protect our data, and then by using open links, essentially you get to take advantage of that open internet architecture. And so nobody can tell you, nobody can say like I don't want somebody to see this link. The link is forever ingrained on the internet. So basically giving like users protection. We don't want like our links to disappear and go away forever. And so yeah, like open links basically because we're open source and because we're operating on IPFS. Um, if I were to go away or if my business as a whole just disappears, everybody still has the code and um, everybody still has their open links pages still operating. And so yeah, that's like the beauty of it. If like there's a lot of companies that will just disappear and all of the data that they're holding disappears too. We've seen it with games, we've seen it with music. Just your data will just disappear and you don't have access to it anymore, even if you paid hundreds of dollars for it. And so by using this, it won't disappear. You have control of it, and yeah, like the more and more people to use it, the better off we are as a whole too.
All right, all right. So thank you for coming, Logan. It was a really fun time chatting with you about IPFS and open